Hello, and welcome back to Muse. My name's Damaris. I am an artist and creator of many different things, and here on Muse, we chat all things creativity, personal growth, self-expression, and how they intermingle with each other to help us become better creatives, better artists. I know this episode's a bit delayed, but better late than never. That's kind of been my motto lately, and being able to release the pressure of this standard that I try to hold myself to. Because not every week is the same, accepting that sometimes things don't come out as easily as other weeks is something that I'm working on and working to be okay with. So for any of you that also need to hear this today, it's okay. It's okay to not have things done exactly when you wanted them to be done. Today's episode, we're talking about walking, momentum, and unseen growth that connects to creativity. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about this concept of walking and momentum and how it connects to not only creativity, but to ideas, creating ideas. And many creative people that I either follow or in history have used and had a practice of movement, and in particular, walking as a means to process ideas, to come up with new ideas and problem solve things that are happening in their personal lives or in the way that they are creating or the things that they're creating or working on. The other day, I decided to go on a walk with my dogs. Now, we drove to this park that I hadn't been to for like maybe 2 years. Because we hadn't been there for a while, I really wanted to be more attentive to my surroundings and to them. And it's a dog park, so we're going to meet other people and other dogs and dog walkers, etc. I was already thinking about this concept, but I came across this TikToker that goes by the name of Cam Scrolls. Really great content. She was talking about in one of her latest videos on raw dog walking, which sounds kind of funny, but I highly recommend that you watch this video. But the concept is basically that you don't have your phone, you don't have anything that's going to notify you, so like a watch. You don't have headphones on, like you're not listening to music, there's no podcast, no book. You are 100% present in your walk. Now, she didn't mention anything about walking dogs, but the whole point is that you are observing your surroundings, you are immersed in your walking, in what's happening around you. Preferably, I think, in nature is the idea, but walking in general. When I decided to go on this walk, that was what I was going to do. I was already thinking about it. I had already watched this video and I'm like, okay, this is going to be different already because we're going to be in a new location, but I want to try this concept. And the reason that she brought this up was that by doing this, you're going to be able to have different thought processes, different ideas, and basically giving yourself space to think, which is not a novel idea or concept, but really one that I don't think we tend to emphasize in our daily lives nowadays. So I did that. I started on this walk. It was a little bit weird at first, getting our bearings. The dogs were really excited, but also it was kind of a new space for everybody. Like they were excited, I was excited, and just, happy to be in nature. Nature really grounds me and helps me to feel connected. But not having headphones on was the big difference because I tend to listen to books when I walk. So that was a new thing for me, and I'm really into a book that I'm listening to right now. So I was eager to want to listen to it. So this was kind of different that I wasn't. So it took a little bit of time to just like get into it. About 10 minutes into the walk, I'm in it. I'm engaged into my surroundings. I hear the birds, I can see them flying around and kind of going into little bushes. I can see the blue sky. It was sunny. I could feel the warmth on my face. The dogs are sniffing around, so I'm hearing them. There's green all around me. And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling really immersed in this surrounding, very present in where I was. As I was getting to this area that a few years ago, I would say maybe max 5 years ago, had been cut back. There were a lot of blackberry bushes that were growing there. And I think they just wanted to, like the city wanted to add more natural foliage of what was already growing around to make it a bit more diverse and bring more diversity to the ecosystem there, the plants and the animals that inhabit that area. Initially, when they cut it back and planted these trees, these bushes, and added wood and stuff like that, there was so much space, and the dogs and people can like run around and walk around the area. There's a lot of dirt. When I went by that area, the trees were tall. It was so dense and full and like lush of green. You couldn't see through the other side. And I was just amazed at how much it had grown over the years. And I remember looking at it before, I think from not being there in the past couple years and not realizing how much it had grown from the last time that I saw it. I was pretty amazed. And this thought came to mind of how beautiful it is that nature doesn't rely on time. Time doesn't exist for nature. It continues to change, to evolve, to grow. Nature just does its own thing without anyone paying attention to it. It's such a beautiful thing to see when it made me think like I'm not really significant in having to observe something in nature because it'll happen whether or not I see it. It doesn't matter. My presence here doesn't matter. And not in a like, oh, I'm nothing type of thought, but more so nature will just continue on, and that time only matters really when you're paying attention to it or you're watching it. That growth happens either way. Haruki Murakami, an author, wrote this memoir called What I Think About When I Think About Running. It's his journey with running, but how that tied into his writing practice and how much it brought clarity and direction in his work, even though they were two completely different hobbies. Since reading that book, I've been interested in this concept of walking in particular and how much that can impact your daily life, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, even. And it's such a simple thing, and it's quite accessible to most people that it seems like a no-brainer of something that you would want to incorporate because there's so many benefits to doing it. Researching more about walking, came across this book by Friedrich Gross called The Philosophy of Walking. I haven't read it yet. I want to share what it says on the back. This book will change how you think about walking and how you walk while you're thinking. Friedrich Gross leads readers on an entertaining and insightful ramble in the company of great philosophers, Kant, Nietzsche, Thoreau, and Kierkegaard. Sorry if I'm butchering those, who understood that great ideas came to them while on foot. It made me think about one of my favorite movies, which also comes from a book, Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice, where Elizabeth, the main character, walks everywhere and she talks about how much she loves walking. A lot of different writers and artists and creative people walked. All these philosophers that this author mentions walked for specific reasons. And what Cam Scrolls said, the reason behind her starting to walk in this way was to create space for thought in her brain, to be able to process all this information that we constantly are absorbing, not just through what we watch on our phones or TV, but from a sensory aspect as well. Things we listen to, not just music, but or podcasts or books, but conversations people we're surrounded with at work, school, and visually having stimuli constantly where we're absorbing information and being able to have space and room for our brains to process that information, to absorb it in a way where we can then understand what it means to us or how we want it to be or not be impacting our lives is important, let alone this idea of how much it can create space for new ideas, for new concepts. As I kept walking with my dogs, we were having a great time. I came to another realization about myself this time, which was that I tend to create things before I have an audience to share it with. And then made me understand and realize that I then wonder why I struggle to have views and to feel engagement with the audience that's watching my work, because people tend to create in the opposite way. They slowly build by focusing on one or two topics and build those things until they have a following and then start to add more stuff, which neither is wrong or right. Continuing to see how nature grows without there being an audience helped me to reflect the way that I'm viewing my own situation, that I'm actually still growing whether or not there is the audience there to see my work. I am a different person than I was when I started. I'm doing different things in a different way than when I started. It's just harder to see the changes and the growth when you're looking specifically for numbers or views or whatever, because I'm so in it. I'm so focused that I can't see the big picture of the growth that is much slower, but over time becomes that dense forest that I saw. And maybe our creative lives are like that forest. The work photosynthesizes in private long before anyone else sees it. Murakami had discipline to keep this practice of running, of writing. Mine is of creating consistently. Growth is the rhythm, not the speed in which we do things. Maybe the real science of showing up is trusting that growth happens even when you're not tracking it. I invite you to check out Cam Scrolls' video. I'll leave it in the description. But this challenge of raw dog walking, it just sounds so funny. Yeah, to try this challenge and see if you come to the same conclusions that I have. Think about creating space to process. Can actually bring out thoughts that maybe you hadn't fully come to conclusions to or processed fully, and maybe didn't have the space to do so before. Because through this one time of walking in this way, I came up with 3 different ideas, different concepts of things that I hadn't thought about before, maybe in passing, but not enough to acknowledge them and come to understand them fully. Which is interesting because each point that I reflected on this walk came from 3 different places. The first one was a observation in nature. The second one was a reflection of my own questioning and my own actions and how I function and how I think about things, how I deal with things. And the third one was an actual idea that came up through this experience, which was to maybe start a little short form mini series sharing these thoughts that I come up with through this practice of raw dog walking that I'm thinking about calling Thoughts While Walking. But I even made a jingle, which is kind of funny and weird, but I'm going to share it. So please don't judge me. But it's Thoughts While Walking with Damaris. And yeah, I know it's weird, but I thought it would be fun and that could be a little jingle that comes up every time I share this concept of my little mini series and any thoughts that come up with that. Let me know your thoughts if you think it's a good idea. It's cool that just from one walk, all these things came up. The world doesn't measure consistency by visibility. You might think it does, but it measures it by motion. I'd love to hear your walking insights if this is something that you're going to try. I'm excited to see where this new practice takes me, this experiment that I'm trying and will continue to share. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode. Please like, share, subscribe, or follow, depending on where you're watching this video or listening to this episode. It really helps me and the pod to reach other people. I hope you have an amazing week, and as always, keep creating. We will see you in the next one. Bye.